one of the couple. There's a couple of other teams with like French players.
Yeah, you've got like
yeah,
you've got Helios and I believe
Totem as well.
Yes, Totem. So those two have both qualified already as well, I believe.
So the French representation is in droves, and I think it stands for both Nubbles and WYLDE. That, you know, it, like we said, it's a scary group, a really scary group, because we've seen how good these French teams are. And for these two teams who are left now, as you said, one of them's going to I believe be eliminated by the end of this game. It's a little I think there's maybe like one scenario where it plays out, but it's very likely that they'll be eliminated. This is it. This is where you got to fight. You've got to rally for tomorrow's games, and then you've got to try and break through that sort of the wall of French teams at the top of the table. But any surprises in the bands? I'm just looking at the operator bands, and to me, maybe the Clash stands out a little bit, but the rest seem pretty standard across the board.
Yeah, Flores a very powerful operator on this map in particular. When you think about the Bar Gaming hold, which is where we're going to be starting things off, and those Goyo shields, or any kind of shield for that matter, holding the top of Ivy, a lot of the time, if you employ, for instance, a mute, any catcher utility, then the only way to prevent a Flores is a mute. If that mute doesn't have a slot in your lineup, then it can be a bit tricky. So just banning the Flores outright makes it a lot simpler. Nubbles, though, are the ones that have banned it, and it's actually WYLDE heading to the defense first of all. German side opting to start on this Bar Gaming defense. So Miragon as well. That does impact this hold substantially, but it's a far more sort of common ban, shall we say, than the Flores. So they're probably used to setting up with this style in mind. They've got the castle barricades as well to help them out, and it looks like they want to lock out completely that sort of office take. They've gone for fully reinforced walls, even barricading that door. Lots of catching utility, lots of castle barricades. It's going to be a real burn fest on the top floor if Nubbles decide to take in a more sort of standard way.
Sticking with that sort of utility dump meta of months ago now, it actually, to me, it always feels like it's just around the corner. But it's been a while. It's been a hot minute. But of course, the classic Jaeger-Wamai combination, plus the castle barricades as well, the Goya shields, it is just, like you said, either you try and run into it and kind of play the chances that someone's not behind that shield. But here's the first run out, and WYLDE make a statement with a double kill to kick off the first round.
That is a statement of intent from Gisela. Who expects that? Who expects the impact in Big Garage? And then catches 2 for the price of 1 as well. Vito and Oakfather, both players that performed admirably yesterday, it must be said, before the massive comeback that Ascend managed to mount on Bank. I believe they were at 1.51 up, Nubbles, on that game, and then they somehow lost. There were a lot of comebacks yesterday, and I can't remember the exact details of all of them, but it was a substantial one nonetheless. We see the nades coming in. JTC just trying to take matters into his own hands. Does manage to grab the frag on the Ivy player, but is felled immediately by Jay, the latest pickup to the WYLDE side. It's Hoshti and Redgroove that are going to need to take a walk on the WYLDE side now as they try and surmount this massive obstacle in front of them. 2-man advantage for the defenders going into the final 90 seconds of the round. It's been a quick one so far.
You can see Lion almost... I think they intended to use the Lion's ability there, but kind of forced you anyway because of proximity alarm. So just clever use of a gadget. Don't always see Jay going a little bit aggressive on the Ivy stairs. Will back off and just playing around the time. They don't have to play hyper-aggressive. Maybe getting a bit too aggressive right there with Jay going down. Redgroove has given themselves an opening for Nubbles to try and make their way through. The rest of WYLDE playing fairly passively. We'll see if this frag grenade lands. Despite the Jaeger and the Wamai, it is going to deal a little bit of damage. But there we go. Nubbles, 40 seconds. They're poised, they're ready, they're waiting. But there's not a lot of utility they can use to actually make the execute happen. But there we go, the Lion pounces.
They have belief. This side has experience in spades. They know how to turn around a disadvantage, and they're doing exactly that with Hoshti. A young gunner in the midst of these old veterans, taking it down to 1 versus 2. Now Toby does find Redgroove, downs him, and now it's all up to Hushti. In the 1 versus 1, he has to peek this perfectly. The timer hits red, but so does Toby. His blood splatters against the back of that mirror closet, and Hushti, leading that charge, clutches the 2 versus 4 as Nubbles take the first round.
And WYLDE is going to be kicking themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, they were 4 versus 2 at one point in that round. And to be honest, one of those kills, Nubbles kind of got a little bit lucky on, actually, at the start with the sledge trading onto Ivy Stairs. So WYLDE not going to be happy whatsoever. And for Nubbles, this is a phenomenal position to be in. The first round, the primary site that WYLDE's decided to take, you've just somehow clutched that out of nowhere and won that in a 2 versus 4. That's going to be a huge mental boost for these players.
Massive for them, especially given the nature of their loss yesterday. The problem is, given the nature of their loss yesterday, you can't say anything after 1 round victory and a good clutch, really. I mean, that's the case with most teams and most scenarios, and especially in CL, but especially with this side. Nubbles have had a really rough year as a side in terms of their aspirations, what they hope to achieve. Being dropped down into, you know, Challenger League in the first place would have been rough for them. Had a fair amount of shuffling since that time. But they would have expected to hope to ride home with Nordics at the very least, and falling to a disappointing 3rd place there. This is really, you know, where their priority is set, though. Of course, they want to get back into EU League. Fresh, fantastic man, if you're wondering. We all know him. We all love him. He touted one of his 3 teams to watch was Nubbles. I feel like there might be some bias there. That's up for you to decide, but right now we're seeing Nubbles taking it slow. First 30 seconds of the round, they are both, a lot of them on rappel again. Let's hope that they don't fall foul to another run out from Garage. I doubt that Gisela will try anything quite as crazy this round.
It's one of those, actually thinking back to it, yeah, they had a huge advantage. They shouldn't have lost that round, but really they got that advantage off of an individual play that's probably not going to work again, and nor am I going down to a frag grenade. Always a little bit of irony in that sort of play, but there we go. WYLDE instantly trade back onto the sledge, and in the first minute, both sides suffering casualties. Nubbles, pace is slowed a little bit, but at least forcing that utility that the defenders have out of their pockets. The Toxic Bay, one being used so early, is quite a big deal, and WYLDE is certainly feeling the pressure.
It's less of a factor, though, when you've got that Tachanka as well. And let's bear in mind as well, this is the kitchen defense that we're seeing. Rather odd not to be going to Master at some point in your first 2 sites. It's quite often the primary for a lot of teams. But that just means that Nubbles, they need to have a longer checklist here. Taking control of the top 4 isn't enough. They also need to force their way into key places, like Trophy, like main entrance. Right now, they are scouting out those locations. They have some relatively fresh pings. They know that one is playing down these main stairs. That is Gisela, who has already grabbed an important refrag for his team so far this round. He's got Jay in tow as well. A couple of German operators on the German side, doing this sort of tag team in the basement.
Working as a dynamic duo. Oh, what a shot! That was just an absolute swing, and you like blink and you'll miss it. Just swing round the corner, head comes off. WYLDE lose a player so quickly. Just absolute domination by Nubbles. Last round was kind of close, but this one, Gisela is trying to pick it up the pieces, make it a little bit more competitive. Nubbles now, after being 4 players up, lose 2, sticking the defuse. Got to try and plant it. Gisela is trying to go around the corner and deny it. Gets picked off by JTC, and there we go. Nubbles with, although a little bit of pressure at one point, quite a convincing execute in those final 40 seconds.
Yeah, it was really only Gisela that threw a spanner in the works there with that triple, but for the most part, it was very comfortable for Nubbles. They were very astute with the way that they conducted themselves. They didn't overexpose themselves at any point to WYLDE, who were, you know, they weren't playing super passive. But really it was the entry on the Twitch, right? Vito just turned that round entirely in Nubbles' favour when it came to that entry into Fireplace, getting not just one but two. The first was a fantastic shot, and then the second seemed a little bit suspect. I'm surprised that there wasn't a reaction from the WYLDE defense there, but it just meant that things were going their way, and then Red Group improved on that. A 1 versus 4 at one point for WYLDE, and you could say maybe Nubbles let that slip at the death, perhaps. A little bit closer than they should have wanted, but good cover by JTC made sure that there wasn't any sort of upset this round, at least.
That's quite the lateral push in the previous round. No real verticality. Master Bedroom kind of ignored.
They cleared
just
it
kind
out,
of,
and then they didn't use it, was the strange.
yeah.
Yeah. They just forced everyone
just
back.
Pushing through main lobby and just taking gunfights, but it somehow worked out. Like, I mean, I respect it. If you're that confident you can hit your shots, go for it. But for WYLDE, obviously they got pushed out top 4. Part of that was the backstairs were getting just completely destroyed by a frag grenade so early on, and then that puts a hole in their defense. I'm wondering, how does WYLDE adapt from that previous round? They got, like, their defensive strategy got cleared out very, very quickly, and then they just straight lost gunfights. So what do you do in that scenario? How do you try and counter that with strategy? They've opted for the same operator lineup. Maybe for them it's a case of thinking about the execution, going, if I position slightly differently here, if I do this, maybe it'll be differently. Or they could just go for it, but that Twitch drone, the shock drone, just destroying the ADSs, and that might prove problematic for the Wamai, going in once again, seeing if they can find any more, and then the frag grenades coming out forces the Wamai off the stairs.
The shock drone takes so much value right now, and Hoshti taking a hefty chunk of Daya's HP there. He's still holed up on the Solarium stairs. There are fresh yellow pings coming right onto his position, so he is a dead man walking right now. Gisela is in support, but finally the Wamai is felled, and now that's, well, Gisela's cue to exit. He doesn't really want to contest that any longer. There's a potential one from his position to try and work a vertical against the master bedroom repel, but I don't think he's going to go for that. JTC has already forced himself into bathroom. This is the sledge gaining very key ground here. Of course, a quick reminder to both you guys and myself, this isn't a master bedroom site. This is once again the kitchen. It's just taking a while for them to make sure that they have this clearance. But Jay, this time around, is lurking on the top floor. He's remaining a presence here.
Knows that that main lobby was pushed into in the later portion of the round, primarily by Vitaline, who wants to sort of like scream on through, just take heads. So positioning there allows for that not late rotation, but if that push is going to come through and Nubbles is going to replicate what they did to succeed in the previous round, Jay is ready and waiting, but that's a good way to just blow out the sledge, prevent them from playing vertically, and just like that in 30 seconds, put a complete spanner in the works. Gisela's going to get another one as well, and now in a 4 versus 3, 20 seconds remain. Red Group has the diffuser, so it's in the hands of WYLDE, but Gisela is just taking names, taking heads, doing everything to disrupt the flow of this round, so Nubbles cannot get to the site. Gisela, another one. Make that 4, and WYLDE does it, get their first round on the board.
Gisela is an absolute machine. He is single-handedly carrying WYLDE right now. They got a triple on the previous round, almost denied the easy win for Nubbles, and then this round strings together a quad, playing the same position virtually throughout. That's lovely stuff from the Bandit, who's now actually going to switch on to Alibi, but I mean, I don't think it matters what you give this guy. He's a force to be reckoned with. It seemed as though WYLDE, they dropped Zenoxo, who was one of their finest players throughout the whole of GSA, and picked up Jay. And we're expecting, you know, Jay is maybe the player to pick up that similar role, but it looks like it's just given a bit more breathing room to Gisela. Maybe 2B has the opportunity to step out and perform as highly as he has in the past as well. Jay is on the Jaeger, which, I mean, in the olden days, you'd look at that and you think, yeah, that's a Fraggle role. Everyone wants to be on the Jaeger. But it's kind of not the case anymore. We saw, for instance, in EUCL, a lot of the time, it was the role given to the coaches, because EUCL is a league of coaches, as we all know. And, yeah, it's more of a support operator in some senses now. But it doesn't matter. Just on the 1.5 scope, that's what you really want. Give him an Aruni, give him a Bandit, give him an Alibi. And let him collect heads. He's got 9 of them so far. Only 3 rounds in. That's insane.
No, I 100% agree with this sort of like Jaeger being this no longer contested by... Well, I mean, sometimes it is because it's such a comfort pick. But the star players are no longer like, no, you know, give me Jaeger. Sometimes it's thrown on to if a player who's maybe less, I want to say, mechanically gifted as some of the star players. Jaeger's still usable in terms of being able to help those players achieve higher numbers and contribute more in terms of kills for the team. I mean, KD isn't everything, of course, but if you just kill someone straight out and get first blood, that puts you at such a high percentage of winning the round. Then it's the impact it has is massive. So it's worth considering, but like you said, doesn't always land in the superstars' hands. Once again, Wild going to be the recipient of quite a lot of utility. We've seen this one before. Ooh, Hushdi, there we go. BZ goes down. And in the first minute, Wild lose the Wamai again. This time, it's just piloted by a different player.
It's funny that the Wamai is the first one to go down in all of these instances. You'd expect, for instance, you know, the Alibi or the Jaeger, someone who dumps their utility all at the start, to be taking these early fights. But I suppose it's just the positioning, of course, trying to hold on to that extended position inside of Solarium with as many ADSs and magnets stacked up as you can. It's just a shame that you lose the potential for future magnets, because it, of course, accumulates over time. And you're set to get a lot stronger potentially with an additional couple of magnets per round if the TS changes or anything to go by. But for the time being, we're stuck with the current Wamai to, well, many people's joy, to be honest. A lot of people aren't fans of that change, but Jay tries to peek the player inside or outside of Trophy, and it's Hoshti, and you don't really want to be peeking him on a good day.
Yeah, Hoshti is having a very good game currently. Not quite kill leading because Gisela is still alive on that Alibi. 10 kills in 4 rounds, still alive, but has a lot more to do. 2 versus 4. Tachanka at Alibi. Weird combination to be left in this round, just to see on defense in total, but Nubbles still ticking off that checklist, opening up the breach, working their way through, but there's still more utility there to deal with. There's Hushdi taking out Gisela, so the hero is not going to deny it. Doge Father is just trying to stick the plant. There we go, it just goes off. And now the Tachanka with that massive rifle has to try and bring it back, and no, Nubbles gets another round. The flames were burning, but they still managed to get the plant down.
I'm so sad. I wanted to see that work so badly, but just a couple of slightly unfavourable bounces from the first few Shumika grenades meant that the ticking damage only applied, you know, about 3 or 4 seconds into the plant initiation, so they just about managed to stick that through. And had that gone against Nubbles, then you could absolutely see a time and a world where Gisela and Tubi, who are 2 fantastic players, and we can see that any round with Gisela on the other side of it is a dangerous one if he's still alive. So we could definitely see in a world where Nubbles lost that one, but they've been strident, they've been confident, decided to stick that plant, knowing that it was worth the risk, and are rewarded for their risk with a round. We're seeing another attempt at the master bedroom hold. Again, Tubi rocking the Chanka. Helps with the setup for certain, but as we can see, he's being picked for those nades. Those are some really nice angles that you wouldn't be able to get with a smoke.
Now, Nubbles, I just like the fact that purely that they're making changes on the fly, bringing the IQ. They understand maybe the Valkyrie's causing a few options, but still Wild is being steadfast in this lineup. loved keeping the Tachanka, even though it didn't. I mean, it kind of worked, but it didn't. The Wamai, whoever is piloting that operator, seems to be cursed and will die in the first 30, 40 seconds in the round. And then maybe it's just because we haven't been seeing the perspective of as much, but I feel like the Black Eyes just haven't been having the absolute impact. Maybe it's just because Nubbles seem to be so clinical in their approach to how they're dealing with the map. But it just feels like the effect isn't really going there. But WYLDE sticking with the same tactic, which hasn't worked these last couple of rounds. And once again, for Vitaline, there we go. Okay, WYLDE starting to learn, know that that shock drone is imperative to try and deal with it. But there's plenty more utility they can throw at it, Jerry.
Yeah, there's lots of ways that you can get past this key utility. And, you know, just because you don't take out all of the ADSs with a Twitch drone doesn't mean you don't have a whole heck load of throwables. You got 3 sets. Oh, wow. There goes one of them. One of the nades connecting with Jay. Down goes the Jaeger. Again, that's fine, though, having already dumped most of his utility. I say fine. You still lost a body. Makes a big difference. Burning these Aruni gates with the X-Kairos. Very important. 3 throwables get caught by ADSs, or rather magnets. The jumping comes through. JTC full blind gets BZ regardless, and then is refragged by the Valk from inside of sight. A little bit of a delayed reaction on that one, unfortunately. Maybe that was a completely blind duel between the two of them. Wouldn't surprise me with the efficacy of these new flash grenades. They are so powerful, so wide-ranging, and can be a real pain. Gisela going for a run out, trying to make the play happen, but can't connect with Vitaline, who's slightly too wise to it. Does take a bit of damage in response. 3 versus 4 here, while still on the back foot, as we seem to keep saying.
Yeah, every single round, it feels like they're just trying to play from behind, bar that first, which they actually ended up losing anyway. Hushdi making short work of Gisela, the top fragger in the Surfer. Hushdi is trying to go for that crown, make their way through. And there's the swing, but Hushdi's just too quick on it. Gets eventually traded, but the Tachanka left in another 1 versus 3. This time Diffuser hasn't been planted, so there's hope to play around the time. But soon Red Groove sprints around the corner and makes that round done and dusted. WYLDE suffering another loss, and Nubbles are increasing the round differential even further.
Hushdi is having a blinder. I mean, I know it's been sort of swamped by the individual performance of Gisela, but those haven't resulted in rounds, whereas every kill that Hushdi has made has been an impact frag. His first couple of kills in the game were to clutch out that 2 versus 4. And time after time, he's, you know, that was the most flashy of his entire round, of all the rounds that he's had. But before that, you know, we saw a kill here and there consistently through every single attack that Nubbles have mounted, and they are looking very impressive on these attacks. And Chalet should be noted, it is a slightly more attacker favoured map than typical of Siege, but that doesn't mean it is overall attacker favoured. It just means that you're more likely to see a 3-3 split here or there. Right now, Nubbles, the way they're playing, I wouldn't be surprised if they take 5 here. We're going back to Bar and Gaming. The very first site that WYLDE attempted, and it's going to be the very last one as well. It's been a very strange site rotation philosophy here from WYLDE. Maybe just losing so many rounds that they want to keep Nubbles on their toes.
10 seconds left before insertion.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt like they were kind of forcing the same tactic over and over again to try and get it to work. This time they swapped out. They had better... Honestly, to be honest, they had a pretty good run from this site anyway. So I think maybe it's going back. Okay, first round didn't go our way, but we had this advantage, we had this advantage. We tweak these things. Maybe we can bring this round, you know, in our favor. Look how top-heavy those scoreboards are. Like, even Nubbles is very, very top-heavy right now.
Yeah, but the difference is that the floor is slightly higher for them, right? Everyone else is still chipping in. We see JTC getting the odd, occasionally incredibly important frag, like the entry in the last round, like that one where he managed to cover the planter on the kitchen attack. And just because he's sitting on 4 kills right now doesn't mean he hasn't been a fantastic player. And you could say that for the same for pretty much everyone on the side of Nubbles. The difference being that between them and WYLDE, they are the ones operating as a unit, whereas it seems WYLDE are kind of putting people in suicide locations almost and hoping that they can gun out when really, a lot of the time, it just means that they're losing bodies, they aren't able to refrag, and they're turning to Gisela to try and make sure that he can dig them out of a hole. But it helps if you don't put yourself in a hole in the first place, right?
Yeah, it helps you know, you don't have to play the game on hard mode. You can switch to Siege being on easy, or even just, you know, regular if you want to. You don't have to keep making it as difficult for yourself as possible.
Maybe they're completionists. They want the trophies, right?
Maximum achievements, 100% in the game. I mean, I respect it, but also it's a case of, you know, come on, it just has to be a little more succinct, a little more together. That's the difference between good teams and great teams is, you know, even in those press situations, they don't rely on individual performances to try and win out rounds. It's consistency across the team, always delivering. And at the moment, Nubbles look like that consistency, but WYLDE, a fantastic headshot with the UMP, and that will set them up for an even playing field.
The strange thing about this is that Nubbles have been allowed to take this hallway, and they've just, you know, the way that WYLDE are playing this, they are actually being fairly passive. Quite often you see those fights come to a head on Ivy Stairs, and for a while Vitalite was just allowed to exist in that hallway, but no peek came through. And maybe this passiveness will come back to bite WYLDE, because they are losing bodies thick and fast. With 33 seconds left, they have the man advantage, Nubbles, and WYLDE, they're just sitting there fairly passive. I can't see a way out of them for this unless WYLDE really pull together some incredible kills here. BZ sending out C4, but it is blind after one frag goes their way. The timer hits the red now. Diffuser is actually in no man's land. They have to go for the frags now. JTC pushing down the stairs, gets the kill onto the Mudroom player, but it might not be enough. 2B goes down almost so low. Finally, he's refragged there. JTC gets it. Red Roof pushes in and finds the final one behind the bar. Nail-biting stuff for Nubbles, but they just about claw it into a 5-1 split. What a half from them.
Oh, okay. A little too close for comfort. BZ decided just to kind of lay down and hold the line on such low HP. It's a difficult position, not knowing where to run or not. But unfortunately, he gets picked off at the last second. And just like that. It's such a one-sided affair. We're having a little bit of a timeout called by WYLDE.
Yeah, I can see why.
they need it.
Yeah.
Like, being brutally honest, they really, really need it. Interestingly, WYLDE, their lineups or their strategy and execution just didn't work, or, you know, apart from that one round. And interestingly, when they swapped the sides, Nubbles still opting for similar setups. So Nubbles is kind of like, you know, similar strategy, but we'll just execute it better. In fact, they've gone even one step further, I'd argue, with the Aruni as well. The Sharia Gates, another way of preventing that utility. You've got the Goyo Shields, utility sink. Aruni as well, Wamai, Jaeger. It is just tons of utility going to get thrown, denied, and then with the smoke as the final line of defense to keep them from getting in on the site and stopping from planting. WYLDE's got to be intelligent with how they approach this and try and remove some of these players out of the game.
Just taking a step back for a moment, we're looking at WYLDE. This is the ex-SSP roster that dominated GSA amongst the likes of G2, Secret, and why can't I think of the other German team that is in EUL and GSA? This is Rogue, there we go. And a handful of other really talented teams that have also forced their way through to these Challenger League group stages. And right now, they are looking a shadow of their former self. They are 5-1 down against Nubbles. They lost their first game against Death Row quite miserably, to be honest. The 7-3 scoreline doesn't flatter them on paper at all. And they are now only 2 rounds away from potentially missing out on what they feel could be, you know, it should have been even a hard-earned spot in Challenger League. It's do or die right now for WYLDE. Nubbles they've got WYLDE on the ropes.
Like you said, well, I mean, like we said through the whole way through, even in the sort of the brief pre-show we had before this game, the loser is most, I don't want to say 100% in case I get it wrong, but pretty much they're out of the competition, regardless of the fact there's one more Playday to come. It is just that breakneck pace.
If WYLDE lose this,
WYLDE.
they are super likely to go up because they haven't gone enough rounds. They've got 4 rounds so far in CL. 4 total. That is just not good enough, quite frankly. And yeah, Nubbles making them look like rank amateurs at the moment, which is just not fair because they are a fantastic side and we have seen that in the past. But let's turn our attention to this round. Obviously, WYLDE, they don't want all of this running through their mind. They want to be focused on the game where it is in front of them. They're going for this full sweep, it would seem, across the top floor on a master take, and that's, you know, a decent way of doing things. They've got plenty of throwables, as is sort of tradition by this point, as is the meta. And they have also opted to go with this Twitch, BZ, instead piloting these shock drones now in the second half.
Swapping it round. We've seen the Twitch with the F2 be quite the menace when it comes to entries. There
That's weird.
isn't. And there's... I guess they could try an impact or something like that if they have it available. I don't think they do. No, because...
No.
Yep. And here we go. That should...
That's puzzling.
Ooh, okay. So maybe that's a bit of an oversight by Nubbles, just not considering that, not thinking... Maybe they just think it doesn't matter. But WYLDE suddenly... Maybe being gifted a little... Not a lifeline, I want to say, but a small advantage that they can utilize in their favor. Chosen to open up that wall towards the A site. Can make do, and now the Iana is starting to push up as well. So getting the sort of the rest of the top floor control from the southwest side, and they're slowly going to make their way round. Doge Barber, fantastic headshot with the SMG-11 to kick things off. Nubbles again drawing first blood. There are plenty more frag grenades coming on through. The Toxic Bay use, I believe that's the second one, with 45 seconds remaining. WYLDE, if their tournament hopes are to remain, they have to pull out this round.
Yeah, opening kill for the defense with only 50 seconds left is never a good sign, but thankfully WYLDE have managed to force their way into somewhat of a plantable position, you could argue, but Red Roof has this long angle. Gisela is actually the one to take down Vitaline. We're back in a 4 versus 4 here. Gisela has a whiff of the smoke, and BZ takes out another elsewhere. BZ now getting into a plant spot, and JTC doesn't have a C4 to deny this. He pushes forward. Gisela mops him up as well. The caretaker is just doing all of the dirty work here. Cleans up house. 2B finds the final one. Gisela continuing his monumental form as he transitions to this attack. And that looked like it was beyond WYLDE, but they proved me wrong.
Still life in this team. Like you said, you know, we expect big things from them. They're not delivering today or yesterday. And they're really running out of time. They're running out of rounds, but they have to deliver. Because, like you said, they've beaten some good teams. They've beaten Rogue. They pushed G2 quite far as well. You know, this team has a lot of talent on the roster, and they're just not executing to the level we expect. And to be honest, whether they win or lose, we want to see that level. We just want to see them show on this stage how good they are, because you know their players have that ability and they deserve to shine. But at the moment, just a little bit dull. But this gives a little bit of life for them, doesn't it? You know,
Yes,
okay, they're not on one round, so it's not going to be a 7-1. 2 rounds, okay. Just need to take it one by one. They've got a little bit of a lifeline with the fact that Nubbles needs 2, not just 1. They're not on that point. And they can potentially look to bring this back. It really depends on, you know, what's going through the comms. I'd love to listen in on WYLDE. Either it's super hype because they're like, yes, we won a round, let's get another one. Or it's like that scary, awkward silence because it is all going belly up. And it's just this palpable sort of anxiousness because they're losing. And I don't know what it is, but I'd love to know what's going on. I'm hoping though it's that excitement, it's that adrenaline, so WYLDE can make this game a lot more competitive than it currently is.
There's certainly hope for them, no doubt about that. Nubbles as well have somewhat of a history of bottling. They are, some could argue, the Spurs of Nordics, or the Spurs of CL if anything. They've been in this position before so many times, on the precipice, never quite reaching that goal. Sorry, I'm confusing them with Gamma. Gamma are the ones that have done it a million times. Nubbles are the ones that... I mean, they also have had a story of you know, repeated bottling, but it's still... it's not quite the same as Gamma. I've just realised as well Sternab is in the chat, so I feel like I'm going to get some... You know what? No, I'm sitting on that comment. You can't you can't say it's not true, Sterny. I'm sorry. Here we go. 5-2. Nubbles, they are in the driver's seat still, so they've got that going for them. Waiting for this attack to come through. It's a very slow one. 1 minute 50, and what is going on? They're stationed around outside of library, but they haven't tried to take at all this entire northeastern side, so Nubbles are kind of repositioning. They're kind of like, hey, what's going on? Why are we not being pressed from piano or office or anything like that? While they're scouting, they're looking for the opening. That might be a bit of a signal. Immediately opening up the double window into gaming gives Nubbles some idea of what might be coming. Jay has just decided to hop into library. What is going on? Where is it? This is the strangest bar attack I've seen in a very long time, Novi. I feel like it's just going to come down to an absolute clown fiesta and a 5v5 on site. It is. Agree with me, okay?
Yeah,
that's what's gonna happen.
I get what you mean. I'm like, maybe that. Oh wait, no, actually, maybe, no, actually, okay. Anyway, with all that going on, they managed to actually open the hatches. They've got some vertical play going through, but Nubbles is just anchoring to high health within the site. They've got a couple players roaming around, which I presume will come in for late flanks in the last like 30, 25 seconds, trying to make their presence known. But at the moment, Wild is just sitting, waiting for Nubbles to go aggressive and make the first mistake. And here we go. There's that first flank, but it doesn't work out. Wild get 2, and they might just be in with a chance in this round. But with 20 seconds left, they've got to get a move on. Otherwise, it's going to come too close to comfort. BZ sticking the plant. Red Groove and Vitaline in a 2-on-3. Vitaline goes aggressive, but Gisela, once again, hero play for Wild. The plant goes down, and in the post plant, Red Groove has to try and assemble some kind of recovery, starting with the first step onto Gisela, the top fragger for Wild, but has a lot more to find, rotating around upstairs. But 2B is ready and waiting behind the bookcase in library, doing a little bit of reading. The studying pays off, and Wild, they ace the round.
Those nooks and crannies in library, too many angles to check for the Aruni in that situation. A great take, it seemed, from Nubbles after a lot of confusion over how it was going to go down. But Gisela just flipped the script, took control of the closet, and turned it into his own stronghold. That's where you expect to see those final anchors, the last bastions of hope for a defensive squad. And it was the perfect place to cover any potential aggression towards the planter. The only thing really that might have been unchecked would be the hatch play, the opportunity perhaps to retake the top floor as all of the attackers force themselves onto site in that instance. That may well have been the play, but Nubbles, there were just too many moving parts for them to contend with, and they didn't see that opening when it was presented to them. Great play as well by 2B at the very end, I believe it was, sitting out... No, it was BZ sitting outside after sticking that plant down, making sure that even if the player inside of library was taken out, it would have been nigh on impossible to lose it. Just playing the time, playing the position, playing the plant. And that has given Wild a bit of an edge here. They have strung a couple of rounds together. I believe we're seeing a tactical timeout here from, I presume, Nubbles, because we've already had Wild's one. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So, heading down to Wine Cellar now. Now, this is an interesting move. Clearly something they wanted to discuss during that tac timeout, where they're going to be going, because we've seen a pair of different sites and no success for Nubbles as of yet. So heading down to the only place we haven't seen yet, and it's that least favoured site of all, the base.
The momentum is with Wild. It's a weird thing to think that 2 rounds ago, Nubbles just needed 2 rounds. Wild had only won 1 round. Now Wild is as close to equalizing the scoreline as Nubbles is to winning the game, which is just a really weird thing to think that 2 rounds ago we were like, well, Wild looks like they've just rolled over and died. They don't look like they're in this game whatsoever. Something has changed.
Being the exception.
Oh yeah, apart from Gisela, who's just having actually insane results. I mean, Hushdi was looking really, really good, but still he's on 9 kills. Gisela on 14. And on the Finker, no less, on the attacking side with the stim boost. You've got the frag grenade, a good weapon, but Nubbles drawing first blood just like that. That is disastrous for WYLDE.
Still dying to this peak. It's it's staggering. That is so frustrating for WYLDE, and so frustrating for any WYLDE fans that they're losing bodies early on to what is now becoming the oldest trick in a very short book that is the Chalet Spawn Peak strat book. You've got to be watching out for that. You've got to at least be expecting it and try. Maybe there was an attempt to fight back. Maybe they actually went for it, but it's such a disadvantageous peak. Like you've got to avoid it. I don't care. Just run a different way out of spawn, please. So many teams do it, and it angers me every time now. But hopefully WYLDE can assemble some meaningful push, because of course this is still the weakest site on paper for the defenders. They have got all the tools they need. They are lacking a Yana. They're lacking Dyer on that Yana, who presumably is being put on it because he's a decent gunner, but he's not showing up today, so it doesn't seem to matter. Vitalite with another! He's getting all his kills outside the map. He's all over the shop. Takes one out from that library jump out. This time it's BZ on the chopping block.
WYLDE, after all that hype, all that momentum, they've just encountered the brick wall of Nubbles.
That's such a weird sentence. It's such a stupid team name. I'm sorry.
I was like, I'm not sure where I'm going with that one. The brick wall of Nubbles. I don't know. I mean, let's go with it. Nubbles are playing units at the moment. I mean, just to these fights and just destroying WYLDE left, right, and center, taking these aggressive plays, and maybe WYLDE getting a little bit complacent, getting caught out when they shouldn't. And that's another one biting the dust with Red Groove, Hushdi, Vitaline, and a flawless round for Nubbles. WYLDE, they looked like potentially the comeback would be on, but it's just not enough. Nubbles move on to map points.
This is an important one as well. This could be CL point for WYLDE, as we've mentioned before. They need this. They need to push it to overtime. I mean, at this point, they can only get 2 points from this match total. Nubbles guaranteeing themselves at least 1 by solidifying that 6 that you see on the screen right there. And that could be just a taster of what they have to gain here. If they manage to get 1 more, then they take all the spoils. 3 points, super important for them before tomorrow's Playday. And I mean, like, we looked at Nubbles going into this, at least I looked at Nubbles going into these groups and saw that they were up against WYLDE. They were up against a lot of fantastic teams. For some reason, I've lost my bearings here. Ascend and Death Row, 2 French monuments. And I thought that they were going out of this group quite swiftly, but they are putting up a showing here against WYLDE, and I thought WYLDE would be ones to push through. They look like they're going to be swiftly disappearing from our sights, unfortunately, but they have 3 rounds to prove me wrong. So, where are they going to be attacking? It's going to be that top floor again. A lot of prep being invested downstairs to protect these Kaiuchos, presumably, and make sure that the Wardenal that they shirked the first time round defending this top floor is now utilised. That may well have been one of the reasons they lost that round in particular, so I'm glad to see them bring the Kaid and actually offer some resistance there.
We'll see if it pays dividends. Yana making her way through the hologram, getting a lot of value into that run through, because there's just no one towards that southwest side upstairs, and it means that library is uncontested. There might be a couple of camps because, of course, Valkyrie has been quite not contested but used a lot. Whether WYLDE believe that it's been 6-picked off, you can see that they're checking for it just in case that the 6-pick came through and the Valkyrie's been picked with the black eyes. There isn't, so Nubbles going in a little bit blind. But for WYLDE, it's worked out. They are running out of time quite steadily because they've had to clear it so much. And Hushdi, interestingly enough, all the way down the stairs in the basement, potentially with the long play, the long con flank.
Yeah, I think he's expecting maybe a late rotation from WYLDE to that big window repel. That was part of What was it? I don't think Wild actually utilised that last attack on the top floor, so maybe a little bit misguided that prep for the run out. But either way, he's in a position where he can at least get back up, influence things late on. There's no real thing in place to stop him doing so. The only thing that is in place to stop him flanking at the very least, say up the snowmobile stairs, is that Nomad, a nice addition to the attacking roster. We see the first stim come through from the Think, and that would indicate something of a push as they start to assume forward positions here, but no fights taken, it would seem, by Wild. Interesting use of that stim. Maybe just looking to buff themselves before the fight, and now this time around they are going to take some engagements. Gisela lights up Red Groove, but he's lit up in response himself. Dogfather playing this position he did quite well last time to hold, but Gisela again with a key frag from that spear. The Thinker grabbing the first kill of the round, and a second for Gisela. Already on 16 kills, single-handedly keeping Wild in this game, you could argue. BZ tags on. Red Groove responds with an immediate trade onto BZ, but 4 versus 2 now, 26 seconds left. One more toxic gas canister. Red Groove and Dogfather with it all to do.
Whoa, Dogefather gets clipped by Gisela. Again, a monster. 17 kills. And Red Groove has everything to do. Can't deny the plant, and Wild live to fight once more. 6 rounds to 4. Nubbles remains on match point, in fact, and has more rounds to spare, but they've got to push through because Wild is biting on their heels. 2 rounds away from equalizing, and more importantly, pushing it to overtime.
I feel sorry for Hushdi. I feel like he was misinformed that round. He thought that there was going to be a big window play at some point. He was just absent from most of the round. He could have been effective supporting in any way, shape or form besides just lurking on the bottom floor. And at some point he died. Didn't even clock exactly where, but he didn't gain anything from that play. So, yeah, odd one. He's going to be switching onto the Clade for this kitchen dining defense now, as we've now seen Nubbles take up every single site on the map before they even reach their 6th round. So, clearly happy to jump about on what, you know, admittedly is an attacker-favoured map, so you have a bit of that freedom. But the Kai is going to be arguably even more important on this site, because that default plant spot is a difficult one to contest if you're a defender. Depending on the directionality of the take, of course. I'm assuming that they're going for a fireplace push, but we did see, for instance, Nubbles, when they were attacking this site, prioritise taking Solarium, clearing out the top floor, and then pinching between Solarium and West Main, as well as sending Tubi in through Fireplace. So there are a lot of different ways you can take this site, and it remains to be seen how Wild want to do it, but the positioning of their drones would suggest that they want to take a similarly direct route. Nubbles are positioning all their utility in a way that means they are expecting a very library-sided take, a very southwards, or from south to north take. That is in fact what we are getting here from Wild. The drones are just set up for the late game, it would seem.
I mean, I understand, I like it, as long as the drones stay alive and they're not picked out by any defenders just with eagle eyes. But it means the drones that they have in pocket are going to be all the more important. They might not be able to sacrifice that utility as much. But they have managed to get most of the control of that top floor towards that south side. But here we go. Here's exactly what Nubbles is trying to prevent with Hushdi using the electric claw to deny any kind of entrance. The Twitch shock drone is going to swing around the corner. It's going to be playing Ring Around the Rosie to try and get out. I don't believe Tubi has managed to find the electric claw. Has got to come in fast. Oh no, miss it. Oh, gets it. That's huge. But where's the Qaeda? I don't believe they're around to get it. And that's the wall getting opened up.
If Red Groove had managed to shoot that drone, that would have bought so much time for Nubbles on this defense, but well, he didn't, and now they're actually making quite good ground here. Wild, still 5 men alive. They're still hunting for this opening frag, which is pretty key, but they're sending 2 bodies in through Fireplace, it seems. Tubi has the support of another. Aware of the potential for players to be down in the basement still, perhaps skipping a few steps on this approach, and that Banshee will give defenders a bit of an early warning, and Gisela and Tubi decide it may be a little bit too hot for them here. There's a lot of places they haven't accounted for. They have got top floor control. They don't have the they do have the Nomad, sorry, to try and lock out any potential flanks from downstairs, but it doesn't seem as though those air jabs have been employed in those locations. So this main task force are a little bit weak, but it doesn't look like a flank is coming through anyway. They are clearing the site out of utility, trying to establish a position for a default plant. As we see one anchor fall back. Tubi is the first to go down. Hoshni finds the first kill of the round. Nubbles sitting on match point still, and they have the opening frag with only 35 seconds left on this defense, Novi.
JTC sort of just yeeted the hatch out from under them to dunk down and rotate through, and now Wild, the calm before the storm, the Toxic Bay is just keeping them at bay, preventing them from going further. Dogefather with another. Oh, Wild trying to reply, but one player is down. It's all up to Gisela, the last player remaining from Wild. Knows exactly where they are, and just like that, Nubbles takes it. They've eliminated Wild from Challenger League in a 7-4 game on Chalet. Wild had a few rounds where they looked pretty decent. Gisela, got to give massive props to them, because